Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. On this very rainy Sunday in St. Cloud, Florida, I am your host, Richie, here with my guys, Window 2, Mr. Ryan Shed out in upstate New York. Been a minute. Good to see you back here, brother.
Yeah, man. Glad to be back.
We've got Mike Zappy, San Antonio, Texas, in full spring training form, ready to defend that World Series title.
Yes, sir. 24 days, guys.
If you haven't already, please
Excited.
make it a point. Like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. On today's show, we're going to be hitting on many a topic. We're going to hit on the central previews of MLB, the National and American League sets. We're going to hit on our outlook for the free agent layout in the NFL, as well as Steph Curry and the Red Hot Warriors traveling to Beantown to take on the Celtics. We've also got a little history being made by two phenomenal basketball players in the form of LeBron James as well as Caitlin Clark. And pretty much anything else that's on our minds, we are definitely going to make it a point to share with you today. Zappy, your Warriors are in Beantown. What are your thoughts, buddy? They are very hot, and they put a hurting on my New York Knicks very recently.
Man, we talked about it a few weeks ago, but we're talking about two of the hottest teams in the NBA right now, with Boston on a 10 or 11 game winning streak and the Warriors winning 12 or 15. This will be game number 4 on their East Coast road trip, and this is really one of those statement games, one of those show me games. I'll use the Cowboys for example. They do so well, but then you go on the road and have to show me in Buffalo, show me in Miami, or show me in San Francisco, and Dallas never did. And now here the Warriors, they're showing people right now, but they're playing the hardest team in the NBA. It's right now, it's hard for me to see Boston losing another game this year. Obviously they will, because it is basketball, but that team is just a finely tuned team right now. When you look at the difference of Porzingis in that lineup, they're just unstoppable. Going over to the Warriors side, we see the emergence of Jonathan Kuminga, who has finally turned into an unbelievable star. And then we look at Steve Kerr and the decision he had to make, going and putting Klay Thompson on the bench, first time since his rookie year, for rookie Brandon Podziemski. And that guy has been incredible. He's been welcomed as another splash brother, really. And he's been the spark this Warriors team has needed. Again, I say the biggest thing for the Warriors is their size, but they're playing great basketball. I think Boston will win today, but I think it's going to be a much closer game than what people expect it to be.
Warriors are hot. I figure them to stay hot, but I think the Celtics win by 10 or more today. They're a different animal at home, and they're a superior team. Not going to take anything away from what the Warriors have done lately. And I do think the Warriors, similar to last year, are going to be arriving into the playoffs as a team that could knock out a higher seeded team, because you could never put a price on that playoff pedigree, because in the old NBA, having a great record was so integral to a team's success. But when you talk about teams like even the Lakers, the Warriors, them just getting in, it's never going to be an easy out for a team that on paper is supposed to beat them. But Golden State, I'm not going to lie, less than a month ago, I think most of our panel had them as a play-in team, best case scenario, possibly draft lottery team. Now you're talking about a team that is showing every bit of life that they potentially could match up with a Minnesota or a Denver in a playoff series. And, it's going to make for a very interesting Western Conference playoff bracket. As usual, it's always a very interesting bracket. Shed, your thoughts on today's game and the trajectory for the Celtics and Warriors?
The Celtics are a favorite to win the NBA title for a reason. I mean, they are, as Zappy alluded to, probably the best all-around basketball team in the NBA today. And to Zappy's point too, I think the best thing that the Golden State Warriors did was Steve Kerr's decision to bring Klay in off the bench, and it lit a spark, man. I mean, he started just to completely look like old Klay. I don't know if it was just coming off the bench and just, oh man, I got to prove myself kind of a thing. And he came out and the team hasn't been the same since, and also to Zappy's point, I mean, Boston shouldn't lose another game this regular season. And he said they will, and I'm sure they will. NBA has more upsets than any other professional sport, it seems like. So I do think Boston will put Golden State back down because, I mean, first of all, they're home. And, I mean, I don't know how you put anybody on what's his name there?
Jason Tatum.
Yes, Tatum. Tatum just, I mean, that dude, he's like LeBron in his prime, like type of talent. Like he's just that good, I mean, I don't know even who you got. Well, you can't guard him now anyway. So
yeah, you can't afford to double team because they have Jaylen Brown, they have Kristaps Porzingis, the Porzingis edition, and I've said it pretty much since opening night in the Garden. He completes that roster. He really does complete that roster. And Zappy and I recently spoke about if a healthy Knicks team can take care of business against the Celtics. And truth be told, it's a question that I just can't answer because I need to see that healthy Knicks team. And I don't know if they're going to have all their pieces in time. And, Boston's been playing together, not just this year with the addition of Porzingis, but they've been playing deep into the playoffs with this core for quite some time. And similar to the Warriors, that's why that playoff pedigree and that playoff experience is so invaluable.
You know what prolong is helping Clay? This is a very similar thing as to what the Sixers and what Nuggets did with AI. Iguodala, he was one time a starting player, great, and then he became the best six man on the team. Big reason why the Warriors went on that run in 2015, ended up being the MVP of that finals. And now you see the same thing with Clay. Hey, you're in a little bit of a slump. What if we bring you off the bench? What if we show that you're actually more valuable off the bench? And it has proven to be true. So this is what I see it that way. It reminds me so much of Iguodala and how he became such an inspirational player off the bench.
It's a solid point, Zap.
No, it is a good point, Zappy, because similar to what they're doing with Clay, when the biggest thing with having guys come off the bench is that you never want to lose much from giving the starters rest. And you always look for that spark plug, and in many cases, 6 men of the year candidates. And I've said this as super recently as talking about the greatest duo show with Brett. When you have not just the 2 potentially best long-range shooters in the NBA today, but from a historical level on the same roster, that gives you a leg up in so many matchups, in so many different metrics. Because in today's NBA, the 3-ball is being shot at a ratio that has never been seen in any and all eras of basketball. And there is an analytical value to that. And when you have a team like the Golden State Warriors, and as you mentioned, even welcoming in the third Splash brother, Steve Kerr gets the big extension. This is a team that's not necessarily rebuilding. They were playing possum a little bit. Now it looks like they're reloading. And they're like, wait a minute, boys, we could win our 5th NBA title this year and run the gauntlet through the West. So it's going to be very interesting. And honestly, you can't sleep on the Denver Nuggets. They are your defending world champions. Minnesota has shown me so much this regular season, but I'm not convinced that that's going to translate into the playoffs. Same can be said for a team like a Memphis. If the Lakers and Warriors get in because of, like I said, the championship pedigree, that alone makes that first round so very scary for your top-seeded teams. Out east, while the Knicks, in my opinion, from a ceiling level, probably are the second-best team, it is a steep jump to the Celtics. I don't care what Cleveland's record is. I'm not taking them all that serious. Philadelphia has their share of problems. The Milwaukee Bucks have their share as well. I just want my Knicks to be healthy enough to give Boston an honest shot. But the Boston Celtics, whether the Knicks are healthy, whether the Knicks are waiting on Julius Randle and other players to heal up, the Boston Celtics are the best team in the NBA and the favorite to finally get over the hump and win it all, first since the Garnett era with Pierce and Allen. There's a reason why, and it's because they're that damn good right now.
There's no question about it. It's going to be fun, man. And, I think you meant Oklahoma City. Memphis this year is pretty...
I did mean... thank you for correcting me.
The Thunder,
because I actually did mean Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and it's funny. Shed had mentioned about upsets in the NBA. You know, it was cool to be at that Spurs OKC game to watch the battle of the Titans, Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama. And I mean, it was an unbelievable game to be at. Wembanyama, let me tell you, watching him on TV and then watching him live is two different worlds. And that kid without the ball in his hand he's going to be nice. He's going to be a star. He's already a star. I mean, wow.
It's
His
just
arm length, dude. The Michael Jordan thing, the
Yeah.
picture you set with his arm from Space Jam, Wemby's arm is like, oh my god.
Dude, and then I mean, watching him block Chet Holmgren's not short either. He's 7'1" himself, and he was at full extension. It was just like, oh my god, you know, like unbelievable. Yeah, like, and this is him at 19 years old. What's he going to be like when he's 22, 23, you know? Like,
he put some meat on his bones. Like LeBron was scrawny too when he first came in the NBA.
He was, yeah.
And you know, he's beefed right up. I mean, look at if Wemby gets as big as, you know, LeBron and those other guys, like, dude, look out.
You're not gonna want to get in his way.
Correct. Yeah.
You're just gonna get the lane
He's just
time.
a kid right now. Wait till that dude becomes a man, and that's gonna put the whole league on notice. I'll tell you that.
It's going to be the resurgence to all the 7-foot guys out there that thought they couldn't play basketball.
And it's so funny because similar to in football, how the Packers and the 49ers have always been able to have legends leave or retire or get traded and always find the immediate replacement that still works for what they do. It's similar to what we see here, you know, with the San Antonio Spurs getting the next great big man. I feel like my entire lifetime, the San Antonio Spurs have had a phenomenal big man. David Robinson to Tim Duncan, now to Victor Wembanyama.
Yep.
It is insane because you look at other teams that have not been able to have that same luck. Orlando did the Shaq, waited a while, Dwight Howard. The Knicks, after Patrick Ewing, still haven't found a dominant big man, even in the same breath as a Patrick Ewing.
Yep.
And, you know, you can really comb through the history of the league. And there are very few teams that have always seemed to have that luxury. The Lakers and Celtics stand out immediately as teams that have always seemed to have that boss in the middle. We're going to go ahead.
One last thing. Could you imagine? Because when I look at Victor, the first guy that comes to mind is Sean Bradley. And could you imagine if Sean Bradley could move the ball like that? You know, like he would have been dangerous back in the day. Yeah, he would have been awesome on Space Jam too.
But what's interesting, and I do actually take value into this, when you look at how offensive players in the middle are not the same post-up back to the basket guys like they were in that era that you're referring to that Sean Bradley played in, a guy like a Sean Bradley, even a goofy son of a bitch like George Murasan probably would be a lot different in today's game and used differently, you know, because Ewing said it.
Playing in today's game.
Ewing said it on a recent podcast that he feels that if he would have played in today's era, because he did have a very good stroke for a big man, that he would spend a lot more time out on the perimeter and less time banging in the middle, because the whole trajectory of how offense is played in the NBA, also because of rules, you know, you got to account no more hand checking, you know, the three is valued a lot more in today's game, even if you're not shooting them at that clip. You know, there's a lot of variables. So the NBA playoffs are going to be pretty damn good this year. I must admit that I myself am very much looking forward to the NBA playoffs right now. Zappy, if you don't mind, I'm going to have you open the next topic up, because the beautiful thing when you guys get to talking, I'm able to tag everybody in this video while the video is still going on. So we're going to move it along to our NFL free agent layout. And Zappy, one of your mainstays in Dallas is going to be testing the market, and he's going to be commanding some big money. Tyron Smith. What are your thoughts on him and others?
I mean, from a Cowboys point of view, the day was coming. You know, this guy signed his 10-year deal and played every year of it. The guy has been a phenomenal player, a cornerstone piece to the team. However, the last few years, the biggest challenge has been health, you know, and availability, and he just hasn't been there. And last year, Dallas approached him differently and used a different practice schedule for him, and it worked. He was able to play an entire season. But when I think back to last year, and I think back to the game where Tyron Smith decided he was not going to be with us anymore, It's that game in Arizona where he was ready to play, could have started the game, but for some reason McCarthy kept him out, and Arizona's defense was all over Dallas. We all know what happened at the end of that game. Tyron Smith, he's going to have a lot of suitors. You can make a case for about 85% in the end of teams in the NFL, or 100%, yeah, of teams that will go out and get him, because while he's still a great left tackle, you say a team like your Giants, Richie, or your Niners, Shed, he fits right in on the right side of things on those teams. I don't think he's going to go to the Giants. I think while every team is going to be wanting to get him, I think he wants to go to a Super Bowl team, a contender. So teams like the Jets come to mind, because one thing we know is they need to get protection for Aaron Rodgers. A team like the Niners, hey, we know about the block that was missed on the right side. The biggest thing that going into the Niners season last year was their right tackle, and then a guy like Tyron Smith helped solidify that. We can look at the Ravens, who already have a great offensive line, and we can look at the Eagles. They're saying goodbye to Jason Kelsey. Lane Johnson might not be back as well. Right. So, there's a possibility that he stays within division. He's going to have suitors. He's still a great player, but his biggest thing is I think he needs to not try to go to a team to start on the left, but rather be a guy that's going to play on the right, and he would do phenomenal, in my opinion.
My prediction is, while you are 100% correct about the needs of the teams you mentioned, my prediction is it comes down to 3 teams that are going to be the closest to signing him. One ultimately will. I'm going to go with Shed's 49ers. That's one of them. The Cincinnati Bengals. That's 2 of them. And my third team is actually the New York Jets. The team that I do think ultimately ends up with him is actually the Cincinnati Bengals.
And the Bengals have a history of taking Cowboy players. Sorry, Ryan.
Oh, no. The reason those 3 teams are actually perfect, Richie, but I would say his best place, or the most likely place, would probably be the Jets, because they'll offer him the most money. And like you said, they're Super Bowl contenders, and a healthy Aaron Rodgers with Breece Hall and Quinnen Williams and that defense, you add him in. I mean, they did let go Lincoln Thompson. So
not to mention that Becton is good. They're going to move on from Becton too. So this would be, because we all know, boys. Sorry to interrupt you, Zach. We all know, boys, that if Aaron Rodgers comes back and they don't address that, it is a very distinct possibility that he can get injured yet again.
Correct. Yeah,
and that's the team where, hey, you're going to go play left tackle. He stays at his position instead of going to another team and having to move it to the right side. I mean, the Jets, in my opinion, make the most sense as well. I think that's the number 1 team. And when I think of teams that need to sign him, I would say the Jets number 1, because we saw what happened in the first game of the season. The 49ers number 2, because we saw what happened in the Super Bowl. And then number 3 would be the Bengals, because we saw what happened to them in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. We saw it happen to them again in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs a couple of years ago. And we saw it be an Achilles heel for a lot of part of the season. They've addressed the offensive line. They brought in Lale Collins. They've drafted guys, and things have not worked out. You go out and get a Tyron Smith, that helps solidify their line, and it helps Joe Burrow get the ball to T. Higgins if Jamar Chase comes back, if they draft the Brock Bowers, whatever the case is. But no, personally, I think it's Jets 1, Niners 2, Bengals 3.
Yeah, I agree.
I tend to agree, Zap. And another offensive lineman that's going to be in high demand, Trent Brown, who will not be returning to the New England Patriots. And honestly, bro, he's a consolation for the 3 teams that we mentioned. 2 of them would strike out, and not to mention the extended teams that you mentioned that could make sense, like a team like my New York Giants, who maybe aren't going to invest another year with a high draft pick for a right tackle because of the fact that you have other needs. Like when you got a Malik Neighbors on the board, possibly at 6, or say if Jaden Daniels possibly fell to 6, they are not going to invest in an offensive lineman over a skill position player because of the depth and just the overall ceiling worth of what quarterbacks and receivers could bring to this particular draft class. There's so many teams, dude. You could literally, once again, maybe not 85%, maybe I'll say 70 to 75% that would be in the market for Trent Brown's skill set. But let's say the 49ers.
They drafted him, so he has roots there.
That's what I'm saying. That actually could make sense, and it's a consolation for not
He's
getting
also an
the
upgrade.
biggest name. Oh, it's definitely an upgrade because McGivens is not that guy.
No, he's not.
It's
He's
definitely
playing out of position. He needs to be either center or right guard anyway. But
and then when you consider that you could roll out next year a couple of plays away last year from a Super Bowl victory, and you got both Trents manning down your tackle positions, and still on paper probably the most talented team in all of professional football, you already won your offseason before you did anything draft-wise or anything else in free agency. So the Jets, once again, another team that's going to be in the market for that, unless if they hit a home run in the draft and say get like a Joe Alt or somebody, if they trade up for that, or if you drop to 10, or if you maybe get your man out of Bama, you get Fashanu. There's going to be names out there. There's going to be names out there.
I will say that I think this is going to be the first year where we see an offensive lineman, the first one drafted outside of the top 5. I think the quarterbacks are going to take over this class. I think receivers are going to take over. We might not see our first offensive lineman until 9.
But that's an encouraging thing for my team.
I don't know,
because if the big three quarterbacks go, that is encouraging for me as a Giant fan, because then I'm like, wait a minute, maybe we could get Joe Alt still.
Yeah.
I
don't think he drops out of the top 5, but
I don't see the Washington Commanders not drafting Joe Alt. And I brought this up on a recent show, gents, and it looks like it's actually gaining more traction than otherwise than just in my brain. It appears that the New England Patriots, with the money that they have, which is the most cap space going into this new season, under the watch of now Gerard Mayo, they're going to be looking to really make a splash, many a splash. And I cooked up a concoction of an attack for this offseason that would really help them. Moving on from that 3 pick in a big blockbuster package with the Minnesota Vikings for the services of none other than Justin Jefferson, and going out and signing Kirk Cousins in addition to drafting BPA, I have a feeling the New England Patriots are about to make some serious splashes. And this is not just some random thing that I cooked up. I actually did my research on Spotrac and said to myself, the Patriots to win now and to compete in that division when you got Miami, Buffalo, and the Jets all with Super Bowl aspirations, I have a feeling that might exactly be what it is. And Kirk Cousins is a good bridge quarterback, even if you draft one later. So I think the New England Patriots very much so are open to trading that 3 pick to getting a superstar like a JJ, who would essentially be their most talented receiver since 2007 when they acquired
most talented
Randy Moss.
Player on their team, period.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, JJ is a generational guy, and if he stays healthy, he's going to be mentioned with the Jerry Rices, the Megatrons, the
catches,
the Mosses, the Largets, that level of game-changing receiver. That is exactly the trajectory. And, Kirk Cousins, coming off the injury, changing conferences, going to a new place, I actually think for the short stay could be very good. Zappy added to my cook-up here before our show, suggesting that the sick part is New England still has so much money, they could actually go out and pair a Justin Jefferson with a guy like a Michael Pittman Jr. or a Mike Evans, which would truly be something.
I mean, think about it, guys. This team is just only a couple years removed from being the greatest NFL team in a 20-year span.
Indeed.
I mean, what did they do? They went out and they mutually parted ways with Bill Belichick. One of the reasons why they never went out there and signed the big name splashes. Oh, Chandler Jones, you want what kind of contract? We're going to trade you to Arizona. That was the Bill Belichick kind of mindset.
Stephon Gilmore when he was still in his prime.
Yeah, exactly. So you remove Bill Belichick and you now have $101 million in cap space to go out and have fun in a free agency class that's actually, when you look at it on the offensive side of things, is very deep. They can address Kirk Cousins right away. That knocks out. They have to sign Kirk Cousins before they were to trade that number 3 pick. The reason why you're not going to go into the season having traded number 3 to Minnesota so you can land Justin Jefferson, taking yourself out of the possibility of getting Drake May, Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy, or Jaden Daniels, one of the 4. By doing that, you only make that trade if Kirk Cousins has put ink to paper. Once you've done that, you've got your quarterback for the next 3 to 5 years because Kirk's not done. I'm sorry, the guy still has
No,
much left
he's
in
not.
him.
And guys last longer now. I'm going to say one thing before I pass it to Shed on this matter. The irony of this is the last time these two teams made a trade that involved a wide receiver, it was Randy Moss going back to the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, no
which was
kidding.
a very no, actually no, I apologize. I'm wrong. It was Tennessee and then the Vikings. So forget I said that.
I thought, yeah, but then think about it. And then once they do that, you trade number 3 to Minnesota, but in return, you're getting Justin Jefferson, and you're probably going to get their number 13 pick too, where you could still draft your future quarterback. Say JJ does fall down, or you're going to be in position where we say the Patriots should take Joe Alts at 3. If they're trading back to 11, 12, or 13, whichever pick it is, they would still be in prime position to get a starting tackle too.
You could still get Fashanu,
and they can also,
or the rotational tackle Alabama. There's still plenty of talent to be had there.
And they're a team because they have money. Guys like a Saquon Barkley. Now all of a sudden the Patriots sounds very intriguing.
If I see Brett with a friggin' Barkley jersey, I will assault him.
And then Derrick Henry, him and Ramondre Stevenson together, this Patriots team could seriously make a flip. And then all of a sudden, it's the AFC East that's the best division. And
I'm not playing Zappy. I actually believe that the New England Patriots, in one way or the other, are looking at a 10 to 11 win season this year, which would be like a +9 turnaround or a +8 turnaround, something in that area. Shed, what are your thoughts on what Zappy and I have been cooking up for Brett's Patriots?
Well, I would like to ask you a question, Richie.
Sure.
Zappy and I discussed this off air. What do you think is the first domino to fall for everybody to start signing and finally finding homes and all of that?
You're talking via free agency, like the first actual domino to fall?
It could even be the draft. It could be a trade. It could be the draft. It could be like with Justin Fields, like the Bears are going to trade him away to the Falcons, and then everything else just starts to fall. Like then after that happens, then people like, okay, Fields is off the table. Now I have to sign Kirk Cousins. He's a free agent. Like,
I think it's going to go in this order. I think it's going to be Fields finalizing and agreeing with his team and all of that. Yes, sir. To go to Atlanta. Move number 2. Move number 2. Similarly, and I don't think it's going to be at draft day. It's going to happen before that. It's going to be Russell Wilson going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Move number 3 is going to be Kirk to New England. And the reason why I say that Kirk will be the last big-name quarterback out of the veteran pieces to be signed is because although I know New England's probably salivating at what Zappy and I cooked up, I think that because he's coming off the injury, they're going to be very patient and making sure that they do all their due diligence to see what he's looking like off the injury.
And honestly, that does make sense because the Justin Fields and Russell Wilson trades do not have to wait till the new league year starts.
No, sir. And that is a good point.
As we get off the air right now. So
a lot of folks don't realize that. I talked to some Giant fans, and I wanted to clear something up with some of them. I know that recently Joe Shane said, wait a minute, we still might franchise Barkley after all, after there was so much chatter about absolutely not. It works out better for a running back like Barkley or any of his counterparts that are going to be free agents because what people lose sight of is that the per year on the franchise level actually is more beneficial to the player on a year basis versus what the value will be entering free agency. And the reason why that might not be off the table for the Giants to do is because with the salary cap number going up, it doesn't hurt them as bad as it would in previous years. Now, if you want to keep Xavier McKinney in addition to number 26, extending Darius Slayton, and they already released Mark Glowinski, are 2 potential moves that can help you keep another core player before entering your NFL draft. Just a couple of thoughts that can make a couple of things happen like that.
I would say, or like in my opinion, rather, I think Justin Fields stays in Chicago. So
I would do that, but they're not going to do that. That's the problem.
I think he's going to stay. I mean, I wouldn't want to restart with Caleb Williams, but that's me. So to your point about that domino falling first, I don't think so. I think that Fields stays, so that's not a domino that's in play. And I think Kirk Cousins is that first domino where now teams know that Kirk Cousins is now off the board and off the trading block or whatever. That after that, okay, now we have to move up to grab Caleb Williams from Chicago because they stuck with Justin Fields, or Russell Wilson's going to end up going to Pittsburgh because Sean Payton wants to start over and he trades up for
certain.
pick.
It seems so certain that Russ does indeed end up in Pittsburgh. It just makes too much sense. And other big names that we have flirted with on previous shows going back to last year, a guy like a Stephon Diggs, he very well could get traded. Once again, an off-air conversation that Zappy and I had, where Zappy is of the belief that Shakir has become more important to what they do on a play-to-play level on offense than what Diggs does. Then when you factor in what can you get back for him, you look like a team like Dallas, who according to Jerry wants to go all the way in, unite him with his brother. I don't think that that's necessarily off the table. But going back to the Saquon point, and it's not because I want to talk about just Saquon. I want to just basically put this in reference to all the running backs. The running backs are still going to be at the mercy, in my opinion, of team-friendly deals because of the sheer fact that they're not going to get what they think they're going to get on the open market. Now, they have until Tuesday, these teams, to franchise guys if they have second and third and fifth thoughts about franchising them. My prediction is the Giants might franchise Barkley for a second consecutive year at the 11th hour, but we'll see. Tony Pollard, Chiefs, makes too much sense. Jacobs back to the Raiders. Eckler might be changing addresses, but I am not quite sure if I've located where Eckler makes sense. I like DeAndre Swift going to either New England or Minnesota.
Eckler's definitely. I mean, I don't think Harbaugh is going to want him, especially at that kind of a price tag. Harbaugh is going to have to do a queen sweep, obviously, without.
He wants to gear every aspect of that offense around Justin Herbert.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah,
in good position to draft Blake Corum.
That's a good point too.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a good point too.
But I think the Giants. I think it would be silly for them to not keep Barkley, whether it's a franchise tag or just another 1-year deal with some incentive, just like they did this year. I do think that Jacobs does stay with the Raiders. Antonio Pierce loves him.
Yes,
and he utilized him way more after McDaniels left. And I mean, let's be honest, he needs an offensive line anyway. So I mean, I would expect the Raiders to go there, or even quarterback if they have draft capital enough, which I'm not positive about. But
now, I
don't think he's the answer. So
now life after Saquon, if it does come to that, I have Saquon going to the Texans, and I have the former Texan Singletary going to the G-Men. Just my opinion. I think that's how it plays out. I think a guy like Zeke Elliott is going to find himself on a playoff contender. Don't be shocked if he goes back to New England with all the shit that they're going to be trying to cook up. And Joey Bosa, it would be cool to see him and Nick unite, but not with the money situation. I don't see that happening.
Financial. Nope.
Yeah. Chase Young is going to be given an opportunity to resurrect his career. And I'm going to call this now. Don't be surprised if he stays in the NFC East and gets a chance with the G-Men or the Eagles.
What's interesting? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to see what happens with these receivers, because we look at, Darnell Mooney, he's a great number 2 receiver for our team. Calvin Ridley, he's going to be available. Marquise Hollywood Brown, there's a great slot receiver right there. Imagine him going to the Chiefs. And, of course, we talk about Mike Evans. We talk about Michael Pittman. T. Higgins, he got franchised, but he could still be traded. Where will he end up? Where will Jamar Chase end up? This is the receiver this offseason is going to be interesting to watch, especially when we see what's going on at the draft and these receivers putting up pretty great numbers,
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. I'm excited about this offseason.
It seems like we talk about this every year. Odell Beckham, where's he going?
Retire.
Yeah, honestly, it wouldn't blow my mind because I don't think he's gonna. Too many teams are gonna have too much space for him. Sorry to cut you, Shed. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just gonna add too. I think Pittman stays in Indianapolis. They already were saying that that team's on the rise, in my opinion. I think they have a lot of good things going with Richardson coming back, and if they still have Minshew too, I mean, there's a backup anyway. This off season, like with free agents and the draft, I can't remember this many big name players being available and all of us kind of guessing, especially with like all the like Sean Payton, like and Russell Wilson not getting along, the Justin Fields thing in Chicago. Do we keep him? I mean, the drama. Kirk Cousins a free agent. There's a lot of big names out there. And Mike Evans, I think, by the way, stays with Tampa Bay. They're making cap space by releasing Shaq, and I think they might keep Baker as well. So I don't think Evans goes anywhere.
I have a hot take on a name that's not as big, but a guy that I think could have a career flip because he had a career best year and then he went to the Giants and had a terrible year. I think Paris Campbell makes a ton of sense for a team like either the New England Patriots or the Kansas City Chiefs.
He flopped in Indianapolis too, though. He didn't do much there either. I mean, he had a lot of talent, but he was always injured.
I think Paris, we might see him be a training camp body, and after that, I don't think we'll see him again. I think
I agree.
He's coming to an end.
Willie Snead comes to mind with that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I haven't heard that
name. Same type of trajectory. Will Fuller. Yeah, there you go. Well played. Yeah. Yep.
That's the category I have Paris Campbell in. I think he's done.
Anything NFL related you boys want to hit on before we hit? I say about another 4 minutes before we hit on the 20-minute mark.
I'm just going to send a shout out, keeping it hot with the wide receivers. My boy Xavier Worthy out of UT, man. Yesterday he ran a 4.25 40 in his first run. Everyone thought he was going to be done. He said, "No, I didn't come here to run a 4.25. I came here to break the record." On his second run,
unbelievable.
He gets a false start right before that first. So now you have all that building in the back of your mind, and then he takes off. 4.21 official 40, and the guy just kept running like Forrest Gump. It was such an awesome thing to see. I love seeing the fans there too. It really adds a lot more to it, to be honest with you.
And on the topic of that's a different kind of thing when you got the fans involved. Since you're on the topic of history, I want to hit on this before we hit on our NL and AL Central preview. The final thoughts on LeBron James, Caitlin Clark both making history this week. Starting with Caitlin Clark, Shed said it best, and I couldn't say it better than Shed. Cheryl Swoops needs to stop the hatred. If you don't like a player, that's your prerogative, but you don't have to always constantly try to take away achievements. And I'm going to prove it being true right here. I don't like LeBron James. I don't think LeBron James is the GOAT, but I will not deny the fact that this man has stayed in the NBA long enough to achieve what he just did this past week in terms of shattering yet another record. Jordan's legacy to me is intact, as well as Jabbar's, but I cannot take away the greatness of longevity, because longevity is what allows guys like the Tom Brady's and the Drew Breeses and the LeBron Jameses of the world, and a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for that matter, taking it back, to keep these records. And when you consider that even last year with the points record, that it was like almost a 40-year record, LeBron James is going to be on top, even with all the new offensive rules, for a very long time. Caitlin Clark, I'm tired of the hatred. I agree. Let her be.
Yeah. Well, there's no reason for it though. Like, what did she do to anybody? She's just out there balling you, shooting threes from 15 feet beyond the arc, draining them, and people are like hating on her. Like, if there was a reason to, get angry at her, like the way she handles herself after hours or whatever, like she's pretty much a straight A student and playing well for. She's not playing for South Carolina or Duke or anybody. I mean, she's playing for Iowa.
Sure.
That's the reason to like her, actually. She's playing for a team
not exactly a basketball factory. Not exactly.
Correct. Is that UConn?
No.
And she's doing all this stuff, and you guys are hating on it? Like, I just don't understand it. And LeBron's thing, the only thing I can think of that could possibly take that is if Wemby stays healthy for the length of his career, maybe to get back 40,000 points. But, man,
the guy is already shattering rookie marks. Yeah, we got to think about longevity because that's the key point with LeBron.
Yeah, especially with big men.
But, the one thing with LeBron, remember, he didn't play a day of college basketball, where now guys have to play college. They have to play at least 1 year, so that takes away a year. And, I still say it, if a certain somebody, number 23 and 45, he didn't retire a couple of times and just played those 5 years, he would have he'd be chasing a ghost. But, yeah, no, congrats to LeBron, man.
100%.
Congrats to LeBron. Like that guy, he's still going, and obviously, I think it's true. I think he wants to play with his son. I think realization is coming for him that maybe my son is not good enough.
Yeah, Bronny's got too much pressure on him.
Last time,
I don't think he's nowhere near as talented. Go ahead, Richie.
No, it's all about Bryce, in my opinion. I think Bryce is going to be the best of the three, personally. But
I share your sentiment on that. Last time that I recall seeing a rookie have the kind of impact that Wemby is having, I'm going to name three guys. Tim Duncan, then you got to back it up to two Orlando Magic players in consecutive years, Penny Hardaway and then Shaquille O'Neal. Those are the last three rookies that I've seen have just this outstanding impact of generational value, because we all know what Shaq became. We all know what Penny could have and should have been. And you know what? I'll add Grant Hill to that list as well, as another guy who sadly the injuries caught up to him. Tim Duncan, as a rookie, was playing like a grown-ass man already. Just a year, a year after his rookie year, he was already hoisting an NBA title, defeating
Robinson was key for him because he didn't have to play center and he could learn from Robinson.
Yeah.
And,
there's others.
Power forward.
There's others that I could name, but those guys from an impact level really stand out to me.
For me, the one I loved was Brandon Roy. I thought, he had a very short career, but his impact as soon as he came into the NBA was like,
you actually just made me forget him. So that puts in perspective.
Allen Iverson comes to mind for me.
Kevin Durant, no question, like him or not. And then yes, Allen Iverson was sensational.
Right out of Georgetown, man. He was lighting up the league right away.
Yeah, he played the minimum years in college. He wanted to be a pro and immediately made his impact. Even though the 76ers were not winning a lot of games, people would literally run to the arena to watch number 3 play basketball, and it was well worth it. NL Central preview. I'm going to hit you. These are Richie's picks. And I'm going to have the guys mull over what I'm putting up here and see if they think I make any sense. I've got the Chicago Cubs. Shout out Jeff Elder, winning this division with a record of 91-71. I've got the St. Louis Cardinals at 89-73, which may potentially put them into a bottom wild card, but I still think that's not good enough in the NL. Pittsburgh Pirates at 85-77, twinning with the Cincinnati Reds with the same record. I've got great friend of the show, Mr. John Olson's Milwaukee Brewers, unfortunately finishing 83-79, and the reason I call for that is because similar to what they've done in so many other years, if things are kind of like hovering around that 500 or so mark, the Brewers will probably move away parts as opposed to bringing parts in. Reason why I love the Cubs this year, I got a hot take. I have a feeling that they are going to be amongst the league's best bullpens. And I think Dansby Swanson is going to have a true career year. This is not a team that has a lot of household names, but when you look at what they have in their farm and how they've been filtering in young talent, the Chicago Cubs are under the radar and actually going to be pretty damn good. Pittsburgh Pirates, I think from a talent level, have a lot of talent, but I'm worried about certain guys staying healthy, particularly starting at shortstop. Cincinnati Reds, if they go 85-77, they actually be a game better than last year's National League champs, but I don't have them making the playoffs. I do think this, though. I think Abbott will be in the discussion for a Cy Young kind of year. I just don't think that he's going to have the arms that match him to prevent long losing streaks. Offensively, they are an exciting squad.
I like your division winner. I definitely think the Chicago Cubs are going to win it, but I just don't think there's going to be a team out of this division that's going to win more than 87 games. With the strength behind the NL East and the NL Central, and with the NL West, and with how we now see every team play everybody, that's why I see this division as one of the weaker divisions in baseball. I think they're the second weakest division in baseball. And so because now that they have to face Texas, Houston, Seattle, New York, Baltimore, and Tampa Bay rather than just that one division, that gives them more losses. So I think we're going to see an 87 max out of this division. I think it's going to be Chicago. It might be 85, 84 or 85. definitely think the Cardinals are going to have a bounce back year and be right there, probably with 82, 83 wins. But Cincy, I actually think they're going to win less, but finish in third. I think they'll finish with 82, 83 wins as well, for the exact same reasons you gave, especially with Abbott. They have a young, exciting team, but their pitching is the thing that I question the most. And outside of Abbott, I mean, they have too many question marks. Obviously, we love to see Ellie De La Cruz. And then when we talk about Ellie De La Cruz, another guy that comes to mind is O'Neal Cruz of the Pirates. They're going to be an exciting offensive team to watch. O'Neal Cruz will be back into their lineup coming off of injury. But again, they're another team that's got to work on things. They did draft Paul Skeens. It looks like he is going to make his major league appearance this year as well. He'll be in Rookie of the Year conversations for that team. And then Milwaukee, the one bright spot is Churio, number one rated prospect in Major League Baseball. He's going to be making his appearance this year. And Milwaukee, you traded Corbin Burns away. We see this story year in and year out. And I feel bad for that fan base. John and Kathy come to mind right away because he put so much faith into this team and they build up and only let you down. And so, but that's the way I see the Central, in my opinion.
All right. Detailed. I like it.
Well, Richie, I mean, you got all these guys above 500. I don't think that's going to happen, especially being one of the weaker divisions in the MLB. But I do like Cincinnati to win the division. Ellie De La Cruz is real, and I'll take AA, Mr. Andrew Abbott, as the race and start turning some heads with the rest of them. I'll take Chicago in second, but I mean, I'll take Milwaukee in third. I mean, they're all going to be competitive. I'll say competitive, and be nice. I don't see a lot of, I mean, injuries can happen, and our takes are going to be out the window with De La Cruz going down for the year and Andrew Abbott going out. Yeah, I like Cincinnati to take the division. I mean, and plus, I don't think there's a more fun player to watch, just in my opinion, than De La Cruz. I mean, that dude hit for the cycle in his rookie year when he got brought up. I mean, he's so fun. He's stealing bases. He's hitting the ball. That dude is like he is the definition of a player, or a player that little kids should strive to be. He plays with everything he's got, and it's fun to watch. I mean, he has fun.
I do want to make one point about last year's standings. This division's top team did win 92 games.
Milwaukee, yeah.
Yes. Chicago won 83 last year. The Reds won 82. Now, this is the question. The Cardinals had an uncharacteristic off year where they finished 20 games under 500, whereas the Pirates, who were marred by injuries in the second half of the year, finished 76 and 86. So I guess the question is, if the Cardinals, even with another off year, can barely scrounge 82 wins, and if the Pirates can improve upon finishing 10 under, even though nobody is outstanding here, I do actually believe that this division, one way, or even if it's on the lower tier of it, can all finish over 500, but only sending one team to the postseason. This isn't everybody finishing over 500 in the same atmosphere of like an American League East.
Right, yeah. AL East.
Yeah, and then honestly, I see a scenario where the team that finishes below 500 is going to be 77 and 85.
Like two bad weeks.
Right there.
Close,
like two crummy weeks that could decide that. And Shed may very well be right. You might have a couple of teams where I might have to flip those two records around, not necessarily Cincinnati. Maybe it'll be St. Louis again. But no, I like your guys' takes, because whether I'm right or the two of you are right or we're somewhere in the middle, I think everybody on this panel made a decent amount of logical sense. And, sometimes going into a year, we're like, this division is shit. And they might surprise us and be one of the better divisions. So that's the fun thing about baseball, one of the toughest sports to predict, no matter how much you know.
This is, in my opinion, this is the only division that doesn't have 100-loss team. Let's put it that way.
I tend to agree.
Like
that's fair.
The AL East, but that's the one thing about this team. It's they don't have a team that just surpasses everybody, but they have good middle tier teams, but they don't have any bad 105-loss teams. So that's what makes this division competitive, but it's still, in my opinion, one of the worst divisions.
Oh, that's a reasonable take, Zappy, honestly. And it's like it's not even about how many games you win during the regular season. It's you show how good you are when you can show what you do in the postseason. Because everybody talked and beated their chest about the American League East last year, but the reality was your Texas Rangers swept through the Baltimore Orioles and the Tampa Bay Rays in back-to-back series. We're going to speak on the AL Central as we approach the final 10-minute mark here. I've got the Minnesota Twins finishing with the same record as last year's National League champion Diamondbacks. Record of 84-78. The Cleveland Guardians at an even 581-81. The Detroit Tigers, led by fuck you, AJ Hinch, just a shade under 500. Tarek Skubal, in a mediocre year for the organization, will actually be a Cy Young candidate. The Chicago White Sox at 77-85. The KC Royals will be a bottom 3 team in MLB, competing with the soon-to-be Vegas Athletics as well as the Colorado Rockies. I got the Royals finishing a very bad 64-98, just missing 100 losses.
Man, I actually have them finishing with 104 losses this year. Not
just a little bit worse.
Yeah, it's just I look at that team, and you brought up a great point that Salvador Perez will probably be on the trade block this year. They need to trade him.
That is something that I do foresee, yes.
You know, why I look at a guy like Bobby Witt Jr., one of the young stars in Major League Baseball, I hope he's not stuck on this team and never gets the experience winning. And yes, they did just win back in, 2014 or 15, whichever it was. But, you know, like...
I believe it was 15 against the Mets, if I'm not mistaken.
And other than that, you know, it's like they have nothing else. They don't have much. They don't have their farm system's okay, but yeah, right now, I see them not being able to win more than 62 games. I really see them losing 100. Detroit, right there with you, third place. Chicago, I think, takes another step back. You know, they did say goodbye to Tim Anderson, which was unfortunate for that team, psych. And yeah, Cleveland, I think, is going to take a big step. Not having Terry Francona there, I think, is going to hurt them. Because he did make a lot of great managerial decisions, which would have positive outcomes in games. And Minnesota, they were tough last year going into the playoffs. I think they're going to be a tough team again this year. I think their pitching is going to be even better this year. I think Minnesota is a team to watch out for, honestly. I see them winning about 93 games next year.
I like the shout. Shed, do you have a different divisional winner than what I put up here?
I do. Yeah. I like the Guardians. I'll take Shane Bieber as my ace all day. He's the best pitcher in that division out of all 5 teams.
And he's got a lot to prove because coming off of an injury-marred season. And yes, when healthy, He is one of the better.
Yeah, obviously that's the big thing. I mean, we're making these predictions based on if everybody on the roster is healthy. And, you know, I like Cleveland to take the division. And Minnesota, I think that it's going to be a fight to like the last week or maybe even the last game of the season, and Cleveland will have the tiebreaker over Minnesota.
Okay.
And everybody else, Kansas City, just, you know, how you like your steak, medium rare, well done. I mean, they're pretty done. I do not see them being competitive at all in the division, let alone in Major League Baseball. I mean, obviously they're professional athletes and they'll get their fair share of wins here or there, but they're going to be in the bottom of the barrel. I don't expect the White Sox to do much. And the Tigers, I mean, you got them at 80 and 82. I mean, I wouldn't give them 80 wins, to be honest. I think it's going to come down to Cleveland and Minnesota straight up. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Definitely going to be, you know, competitive between those two teams. It's actually going to be pretty, like I said, like down to and just in my opinion, obviously, the right down to the wire with those two, you know, playing each other and who's got the better, the head-to-head record.
This is going to crack you up. This will crack you up. You know how, like, you always have the Central lately has always been that division that sends a team.
That division.
And fans are, like, bitching about it. What I always find comical, and I'll make fun of our own division for a second, why is it that the American League East bitches more than the American League West about a weak team getting into the playoffs? You know, you know how they say East Coast bias? Well, this is East Coast bitching. But I'll own that and admit that the American League East fans seem to complain more than the other powerhouse division. I got some hot takes. Most wins, Tariq Skubal, 14. Home runs, Jose Ramirez at 37.
Good.
Stolen bases, Bobby Witt Jr. at an even 50.
Yeah, I'll take Bobby Witt and the stolen bases all day. Ramirez,
I'll take
37.
the over on Bobby Witt.
You might be right.
Yeah.
Ramirez,
I think
30.
Yahoo had him around 47 steals, so it's in the mix there.
What's his name from Chicago could be leading the Central with 41.
You're talking about the outfielder there.
Yeah,
Yeah, bear with me. I'll pull him up.
but yeah, that was going to be my question.
Nah, Brayu's now with the.
No,
Well,
Abreu's with Houston.
I don't even know if he's still there anymore. I think he moved again.
Oh my gosh! But who and the NL Central? Who's
You're talking about Eloy Jimenez?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, left fielder. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I couldn't think of his name either.
There's some players on this team, but no, as far as those numbers, Jose Ramirez, I don't know. Could I see him hitting that many? I see him as a 33 home run guy, but he could also be a 45 home run guy. Oh gosh, guys, Boston is making a statement.
I take it
now.
back, gents. He's still an Astro. He did not move away from the Astros. I thought he did.
I didn't think he did. I thought it was a 2-year deal.
It just seems like another lifetime that he was the American League MVP. Now, granted, it was in a 60-game season, but it was still kind of weird.
Yeah.
Boston is up right now by 15 late in the first quarter.
First. Okay, fellas, who's the first manager in either of these central divisions? Who's the team that fires their manager first?
God.
I'm going to go with the White Sox.
Okay.
And no, they're not bringing back Tony La Russa.
Yeah, 90 years old.
And if they do want to bring him back, they're going to send an Uber for him.
He's taking a lift. He's not an Uber guy.
I could see game 89, Tony La Russa's first game
Milwaukee.
Back. He forgets where the stadium is due to the bending of the elbow. And none other than Mike Zappy on his second hustle, picking him up.
I want.
Then Zappy continues to drink with La Russa, and he doesn't even make it to the stadium.
I want to say Milwaukee too, Shed, but Pat Murphy just got signed.
I'll tell you why they're not going to fire their manager if things are going wrong. Milwaukee's too cheap to pay two managers. What do you think they are? The basketball team?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not going to win the division this coming year, and they're going to take a step back, and I think that's going to be enough. But
if John Olsen approached the Brewers with his managerial track record, they would pay him just because. No, I'm just kidding. He'd have to do that for the Bucks.
Dame.
Who's
Dame
the guy?
And they're falling apart.
Who's the guy in the National League that can lead the league in home runs?
I got to go Schwarber again.
NL Central. Stick it to the Central. Sorry. The only guy that comes to mind for me is Paul Goldschmidt.
Paul Goldschmidt definitely in the conversation, but I wouldn't rule out a big year out of Brian Reynolds. But if I had to pick one particular player, I would probably go Goldie. Yeah, I think Goldie for sure.
Yeah, even when he was in Arizona, he was still playing freaking ball and out. So
yeah, probably Goldie if I had to make an honest assessment. So we all agree that not one of these teams will be representing their league in the World Series, correct?
No,
I mean, hey
I think it happened.
The thing about baseball, once you get in, it's a whole new season.
No doubt about that. The Twins have not been to the World Series since '91. That's my prediction there. The Cubs a little more recently, 2016, but between 2016 and all the pain before it, it was a long time. So I'm going to say no, and I'm even going to
bring back Kirby Puckett.
Oh my!
Bring back Kirby Puckett.
I'm even going to take it a step further. Nobody of these division winners, because there's only two teams going to the playoffs of each division, will so much as even win a playoff game. Forshed and Zappy.
Sweep. Okay.
For Shed and Zappy, I am your host, Richie, and I appreciate you guys hanging with us. Announcements to come, and I can't wait to talk about the West and East divisions. That's going to be a lot more fun than the Central.
Yeah, agreed.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, guys, and I wish all of you a successful new work week. I am out for now. They are out for now. Announcements to come.